The guidance counselor said, you shouldn't try for Columbia. You need to try for City College or Brooklyn College because it's going to be too expensive and you're not going to be able to get in. And he said that to us, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try anyway. And on the other end of that, we were playing basketball at the time. We had their parents saying, you should try for Columbia. So we didn't let that guidance counselor stop us, and we both tried for Columbia, and we also tried for NYU, and we got into both. And because we came from such a poor background, it actually cost us less to go to Columbia than it would have cost us to go to a city college.
When you're starting late, you might say, I need to get up to speed very quickly. So you're more susceptible to someone trying to be nefarious when it comes to taking your money from you. You might fall for a scam a lot easier. So they say, we can make you this money, we guarantee your return. Anytime someone guarantees your return, run the other way. So this is for, especially if you're a beginner, you don't know what's going on. A lot of people will talk circles around you and try to get you to believe that all you need to do is to invest with them and you're going to make a lot of money. Avoid the scam, because that's one of the quickest ways to lose the money that you intend to invest and have a nest egg.
Financial independence or just being good with money is an output. You have to have the inputs in right. So if you focus on doing the right inputs, living below your means, trying to make money in different ways and make more of it as you go on while keeping your expenses low, you're going to wake up one day and you're going to get to a point. But when it comes to catching up, I think one way, I feel when someone's even in their 50s, I believe you still got 40 more years of life if you take care of yourself, So I don't know, when is it ever too late to start? You can always start, and even if you don't hit your goal, you'll be much better off if you have never started.
Welcome to Catching Up to FI, a podcast on mindset, money, and life for late starters of any age on their journey to financial independence. I'm Bill, and I'm a late starter.
I'm Jackie, and I'm also a late starter, and we're your host. We're here to help you on your journey to financial independence, no matter where you're starting.
We're going to talk to experts, other late starters, and explore topics related to our mission.
Join us as we catch up to FI together.
Hello, and welcome back to Catching Up to FI. I'm Bill Yount with my co-host, Jackie Cummins-Koski. And today we have yet another set of twins on the show. The twins are in the house. We had David and Stephen Boyer on the show. I have twins. My wife is a twin. There are twins everywhere. There's actually a twin convention that I think we'll hear about. Jackie, would you do me a favor? Tell me how you are today and introduce our guests.
Yeah, I'm doing great today, Bill. And it's been a hot summer, but this is our second set of twins. We're recording this in June. And the twins are in the house, and they are friends of mine from way back in the day. They created an amazing platform, former Wall Streeters. So we're excited to have them today. And they do things a little bit different than what we hear in the FI community on certain topics. So it's going to be a lot of fun kind of diving into that. So it's going to be a great show.
All right. So Nadia and Nicole are twin sisters raised by a single mom. That sounds familiar, right, Jackie? You were raised by a single dad?
Yeah, sure was.
We have this theme in our audience, too. And we did a webinar last night with several single moms. But their money journey began with growing up very poor in one of New York City's toughest housing projects. Despite their modest upbringing, they both found their way to Columbia University. We got to hear the story behind that. And went on to work for one of the largest firms on Wall Street. During that time, they had a front row seat to the devastation of New York's September 11th and also the financial crisis of 2008. But investment banking didn't quite do it for them, so they traded in Wall Street and the big paycheck, retired early from their corporate life in their 30s, and used what they learned to pursue their own endeavors. Those endeavors do include dividend investing, house hacking, multifamily real estate, and entrepreneurship. We're going to hear from them on these topics. Now, fast forward to today. They are both married moms that retired from their corporate jobs with a passion to teach others. The Wealth Twins platform was born. Yet another twin platform. This is where they share their knowledge with easy-to-follow tips, primarily through the Wealth Twins YouTube channel. They attended their first Twins Festival last year in Ohio, where Jackie is, to meet other dynamic duos, trios, and quads, much like themselves. It seems like I'm surrounded by twins. I have not heard of the Wealth Twins being in this space for 4 or 5 years. And it sounds like they don't necessarily see themselves in the FI bubble. They're in a wealth building bubble outside of us. We're trying to merge these two bubbles today and bring the twins into the house. Right, Jackie?
That's right. And I really think that they are hidden gems because they actually retired from their corporate job before me. But what's so exciting and the part I'm really interested in is that they're in the heart of it all in New York City. I always think of New York as like this big place where everything happens. So like you said, Bill, you've got twins surrounded all around, and we love twins. So first of all, welcome Nadia and Nicole to the show.
Thank you for
Thank you
having
guys
us.
for having us.
Yeah, this is going to be a good conversation. Now, last year, you guys went to the Twins Festival in Cleveland, Ohio. How was
We
that?
did. It was our 45th birthday. It was our first birthday we spent
Oh boy,
apart.
throwing out numbers already.
Because Nicole is like, I'm proud of my age. As long as I don't look that old, it's all
Oh,
good.
God, you guys don't look a day over 30. Are you kidding me?
So it was our first time spending our birthday apart because it's a weekend after our birthday.
Okay.
And Nicole's like, I'm not traveling to go see each other. Let's just go here. So we went to the Twins Fest. One of our fans or our subscribers on our YouTube channel was a twin. And he's like, I think every twin should go to the Twins Fest at least once. And we went there. And one of the things that a lot of people say there is the first time you go, it's like a big event. But every time you go after that, it's like a family reunion. And we're just always been used to being twins. But when we were in that space, that's the first time you're like, wow, it actually is something unique and special to be a twin. And all these people get us. Like we all had the same experience. It was like a big family reunion. So I think every twin should go there. Even if you're fraternal, doesn't matter.
It was the first time where if you weren't with your twin, that's when it became weird. Like, where's your twin?
Yeah. Why are you not dressed alike?
And they make you, yeah, you have to dress exactly alike or else you're going to get some flack from all the other twins. So it's just a place where you could be in a bubble. And it's actually in Twinsburg, Ohio. So it's a pair of twins that granted the land to that part in Ohio. And every twin that goes there is an honorary, I guess, citizen of Twinburg, Ohio. So it's actually a cool event. And you have twins from as young as maybe a couple months old to the oldest twins there last year was about in their 90s, I want to say. And it's for fraternal and identical twins.
How many people attend this event?
There were over 2,000 sets of twins last year. So it's the largest twin festival in the world.
Yeah, so Ohio has something.
We do.
Interesting fact, too, is if you're watching the YouTube video, do you think Nadia and Nicole are identical or fraternal? And what's interesting is, well, tell us the story behind how you found out what you really were.
So, well, with that, we always thought we were fraternal twins growing up. We just used to always tell everyone we're fraternal twins that look alike. So that was the story up until about 2 months ago when, because of the Twin Festival, there were so many twins that had been told when they were little that they were fraternal twins and found out that they were identical twins after taking DNA tests. And one of the reasons why the twins started supporting DNA tests was because at these twin festivals, you'll have a lot of government agencies like the FBI and things like that that try to get a hold of identical twins and to hone their technology or to find out better ways to do something with DNA. So they have to figure out which group you're supposed to be in, identical group or fraternal group. So some twins had told us, look, the doctor told us we were fraternal too. Take the test. You'll see you're probably identical. So Nadia forced me to take a DNA test. And it turns out we are 100% identical twins because Ancestry DNA actually wrote Nadia saying, we have a problem with your test results. Either you took this test under a different name or there's something wrong with our equipment and must be contaminated, or you have an identical twin, or you're a bone marrow recipient.
Yeah, it was a bone marrow
marrow donor. So they found out that way that we were 100% identical. So that was interesting. I always thought we were fraternal twins, but we're identical twins.
Well, I have fraternal twins, and in my experience, they grew up completely different. They're on opposite ends of the spectrum, and we're talking about money today, and their money upbringing was that of modeling of a late starter with paycheck to paycheck, spend first, save last. So we've been trying to recover them from that, and one is more of a frugal twin, and one is more of a spendthrift twin. Tell us a little bit about your money story and whether or not your views on money growing up and your education on money was different. And did you migrate to opposite ends? Did you stay kind of in the middle? Or do you have similar views on money? What was your money education like as twins?
Well, I would say growing up, Nicole and I were big savers only because we saw our mother struggling a lot. So we wanted to save whatever money we had received from her going to school on a daily basis, put it away so we can like buy her a gift for Mother's Day or something like that. Plus, growing up, we were the youngest out of 6 children. So if you see everybody struggling, you're like, I don't understand. Why are you working and you're struggling? That never made sense to us. So we're like, well, if we saved a little bit of money, it will help us out. So doing that very young set us up to be good savers. But then when we got our first jobs, we kind of stopped saving as much, you know? But I think when it comes to both of us, we're relatively frugal because growing up in that situation, you didn't really care about materialistic things. We just wanted to make it easier on our mother. So we never asked for expensive things or anything like that. And we made do with what we had.
That's not true exactly. We were like every other teenager. I wanted the triple
Not
fat
all of
goose. I wanted the fancy sneakers. We didn't get it.
No, but we knew not to ask. We understood if you saw someone struggling, you knew not to ask. So we're not very much into buying things material wise in order to like help us increase our status or anything like that. And being twins, my mother dressed us alike. So you stop caring right away what people think about you because that's not seen as cool if you dress like another person. So we became very independent in that way, would say, well, we don't really care what the outside world thinks. This is how we're going to spend our money, right? Now, I think Nicole and I differ when it comes to debt. I have no problem using credit cards to pay for things and then eventually paying off or paying off immediately. Nicole thinks debt is a 4-letter word. She does not like it at all. I think the way that we budget our money is very different too. Nicole sticks to a strict budget. I put the money away, I automate stuff, and then whatever's left, I'm just spending it. I don't look or whatever. Nicole, I don't think does that. She has a plan that I call stick and move. She probably doesn't like me bringing that up, but she keeps her money in separate accounts. And then when she's getting ready to use it, she'll move it over to that account for that purpose. Like, okay, if this is for the kids, let me move the money over for this and I'll pay for it that way. I call it that her stick and move plan, but we differ very much.
That sounds a lot like Bill.
Stick and move.
High five, high five.
Stick and move.
Well, so it's nice to know that even when you're twins, things aren't identical. Because, like Bill, you said that about your sons, and you definitely have to make sure that they hit the Twinsburg, Ohio Twins Festival sometime soon. So you guys, it does sound like your mom had a lot of influence on you. And when you talk about growing up poor and growing up in the projects, so how did your mom help sort of shape things to where it changed your trajectory, where you ended up not only going to college, but going to one of the top schools, Columbia University? Like, how did that shift happen?
So I want to say one is because we're the last out of 6. And with that, my mother saw how it was to put her kids in the neighborhood schools and what happened there. So from the age of 5, or actually 6, we went to schools at least an hour and a half away from our house. So we were bussed out from a very early age. And we were exposed to different, like a more middle class neighborhood with people from different backgrounds. And from there, it was no question as if these kids were going to college. It was just a matter of which college they were going into. Then when it came to money, our mother worked 7 days a week, and she would not let us work even when we were at like 14 or so. And we're like, look, we can get a job now. We can help. She said, no, your job is to focus on your education. So she told us the way to get out was going to be, you have to get a good education and get a job. Now, when it comes to debt, I remember the first time I got a credit card because my mother didn't have a credit card, didn't have a bank account. And my father, he was in and out of the picture, but it was never a positive experience when it came to money with that. And it was always fights about money when it came to child support, things like that. So that was another instance where we're like, okay, in terms of relationships, we have to be focused on how that person is with money. But in terms of education, how can we use this so that we're never in this situation that we are currently? So I think us focusing on the education and being around people where college wasn't an issue of going to college really helped us with that. And I want to say Nadia and I don't know if it was like maybe we found school kind of easy. There's a two-edged sword with that. We weren't studying it as much as we should have because things came easy to us. But on the other hand, we were in the classes where the kids were saying, we're going to go to this school, we're going to go to that school. So we just decided, hey, let's try. And I remember,
We're very
yeah,
competitive.
I remember
We're very
we had a
competitive.
guidance counselor when it came to filling out the applications for school for different colleges. And we were having a problem paying for the application fees. So they were giving us vouchers for the fees. And the guidance counselor said, you shouldn't try for Columbia. You need to try for City College or Brooklyn College because
SUNY.
it's going
Yeah.
to be too expensive and you're not going to be able to get in. And he said that to us. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try anyway. And on the other end of that, we were playing basketball at the time. We had their parents saying, you should try for Columbia. So we didn't let that guidance counselor stop us. And we both tried for Columbia and we also tried for NYU. And we got into both. And because we came from such a poor background, it actually cost us less to go to Columbia than it would have cost us to go to a city college.
And why was that? Why was
Mhm.
it cheaper?
We were just getting so much financial aid.
Financial
Wow,
aid package.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
and most of it wasn't made out of loans. Like I would say about 80% of it was out of grants. And then it turned, and then maybe, I think, yeah, less than 20% was in loans. And I think now, if you get into those colleges, if you need financial aid, I don't think any of the package is made out of loans anymore.
Yeah, it's need based. So
Wow.
they don't base a decision if you can pay, and then now it's 100% guaranteed if you're under a certain income bracket.
Wow. So your guidance counselor told you that you should not apply to these prestigious universities because you weren't getting in. Wow. That's a note for all of our administrators. Let's not douse the dreams and the
Oh,
desires and
yeah.
underestimate kids. You were kids.
yeah,
That's crazy.
The best thing you can do is say, you can't do this.
exactly.
Yeah.
It will project you into that. As a parent, we all know that, right? Nope, shouldn't do that,
Right.
can't do
Right.
that. And the kids go do it.
Yeah. I would think that another piece of information we got at that time that helped us was get a job in the college office,
Yeah.
because the first applications for scholarships and everything go through that office. So if you're working there, the person who is the head of the office might look to you first, like, hey, you probably should apply for this scholarship program or this. And that helped us pay for like the first set of books that we needed for school, because we had different scholarships, and it allowed us to pay for the applications. Applications for college at that time, $140, $150 or $200 a piece. We did not have that money. Like, so it was just things lined up in that way, and here we are now.
Well, one of the things that people forget about, and we should have this guy on, is Chris Corinthian was a speaker at Economy this year, and he talks all about the oodles and oodles of money that's out there in scholarships that is left unspent because people don't search after it. And
Mhm.
he has a whole organization, and I forget the name of it right now, that helps people find the money to reach their dreams just like you did.
Yep.
Yeah, and look at how much that lifted you guys up. So you finish Columbia and you end up with a very small amount of student loans, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So what happens after you graduate from Columbia?
Well, right before we graduated, our mother passed away the
Oh,
last year of
okay.
school. So it
Tough.
happens, I guess.
Yeah, and being so young, it just shows that obviously your mom had a lot of influence on you in the younger
Yeah.
years. And my dad passed away before I graduated from high school. So we kind of have that in
Mhm.
common. So when that happens so young,
It's not common that happens so young, but
right.
yeah, it sucks.
Yeah.
But it also forces you to grow up very quickly because you realize you don't have anybody to depend on. So Nadia and I had to say, okay, what we're going to school this last year, we got to make as much money as possible because once school is over, we got to find a place to live. So we were applying to all these different places to get jobs.
Yep.
And I actually didn't want to work with Nadia in the same company. I was like, we're going to split up and
Yeah,
be
exactly.
totally different. And I got 2 job offers at the time. One was to be in oil trading up in Connecticut, and the other one was to go to Goldman Sachs. And I chose to go to Goldman because Connecticut was too far from Queens, and I had just gotten my driver's license. And I was like, I don't know if I can drive to Connecticut every day. So I said, okay, I guess we're going to be working at the same company, Nadia. So we were looking for not the place that was going to make us happy, the place that was going to make us the most money at the time.
Or the place that would just give us a job. Like, we needed a job immediately after graduating college.
So you guys started at the same time at Goldman Sachs?
Yeah, in different
Yeah.
divisions. I was on the sales side, Nicole.
No, we started at the same division, different desk,
Oh,
but then we
well,
moved to different sides afterwards.
yeah, you were in asset management. I was on the broker dealer side.
Wow. And that's a lot of people's dream job, man. Those are awesome
Well,
jobs.
25 interviews later, yeah.
Well, it sounds like failure was not an option.
Didn't have a choice.
And that,
Yeah.
just like being told you couldn't do something, sprung you, motivated you to the next level. I mean, look at your trajectory. Look where you've come from, the projects to Goldman Sachs. That just doesn't happen that often. But now you provide people with the reality of a dream, which, and you're inspirational to so many people in and outside of our community. I'm so glad that we're getting your story out there today.
You may have heard of a new financial planning platform called Nectarine. It's at hellonectarine.com. And this is put out by our friend Jeremy Schneider, who runs the famous Personal Finance Club. If you're on Instagram, you have seen his sketches, and he is awesome. He is well respected. He knows what he's doing. And one of the big questions that he never had a good answer to was, how do I find a good financial planner that is flat fee advice only? He didn't have an answer. So, you know what he did as an entrepreneur? He created a platform, and that platform is Nectarine, where it's a $150 flat fee for a 1 hour session. And this is with vetted advice only planners. Most are CFPs, which stands for Certified Financial Planners, or other credentialed and licensed professionals. That's an important nuance. And again, this is brought to you by Personal Finance Club. I myself, as a nerd, went back to get my certified financial planner credential, and I know how valuable this credential is. And Jeremy wanted to make sure that he was only providing you with the best. So go to hellonectarine.com, and for a flat fee of $150 per hour, you get access to an advice only financial planner. Check it out.
Two of the things that you experienced, I think our audience might be interested in hearing about. You're there, you come out in, I think, the year 2000 or so, and you experienced firsthand 9/11 and the great financial crisis. Maybe one of you wants to take one and one of you wants to take the other, and tell us about your personal experience with these events.
I guess I'll take the 9/11,
Okay.
and Nadia will take the recession. So, yeah, we just got out, and it was also right at the tail end of the dot-com bubble. So everything was really changing around us, and we started seeing some changes where some of the free options we used to get, like for coffee, we would have half and half, low-fat milk, full milk. Those things started
All the
disappearing.
sample drinks and the Cokes and the free water and the fruit
Yeah, all those things
baskets.
started disappearing, the fresh fruits and stuff. We're like, maybe something's going on in terms of finances on Wall Street. And then 2001, I was always late. And I remember coming out of the World Trade Center. That was my stop on a train. So I came out the World Trade Center. I'm running to work because they're having this big meeting. And I get to work and I'm like, this is a beautiful day. I still remember what I was wearing, everything, a pink shirt and khakis. And we're in this meeting. And as we're talking this meeting, I see a bunch of burning paper out the window. And I'm like, why is there burning paper? Who's throwing burning paper out the window? We get out the meeting and I'm talking to a coworker about it. They say a plane hit the World Trade Center. And I was like, well, that's crazy. It's a beautiful day. And I'm thinking it might be a little Cessna that might have hit the World Trade Center. And as we're talking about this, the next plane hit. And one of my bosses runs out the office and says, we're under attack. And then the whole office just went crazy. It was shock and people started screaming, people started panicking. And I just thought to myself, it can't end today for me. I don't know what to do, but I'm not going to be here. It's not going to happen today. And I tried to call Nadia. All the phone lines were down because they were so busy. People were trying to call each other. Everyone started running out of the offices. Our division, they told us to stay. Nadia's division, they told her to get out.
No, they
So
told me
she
to
was,
stay because I wasn't
they
funding.
told you to stay for a while.
Yeah.
So she ended up going downstairs and I stayed, and we're just trying to find who we can find at the time. And you'll start seeing in times of crisis different personalities. And it was very interesting that day. I still remember even the bosses had different personalities. You had those that were real leaders in those times and those that panicked and were totally worthless. And I said, wow, it doesn't matter what position you are. People act differently under crisis. And I think because earlier on I had lost my mother, I had figured out what type of person I was when it came to a crisis. So I knew I was more the calm under pressure one.
Yeah.
So with that, just trying to figure out what to do. It took us 5 hours to get home that day. I finally found Nadia. We ended up at a hotel trying to look at the news that day. And the hotel, we knew there was a ferry. That was the only way to get back to Queens. And the closest part was be Long Island. So we took a ferry from downtown to Long Island. But by that time, both towers had fallen down. And I actually remember looking out the window and I saw the second tower fall. And I was just like, it was like we were in a movie, and it was totally crazy. So we had to wrap wet cloths around our mouth and on our nose and take the ferry out to Long Island. And then after that, they told us not to come back for 3 days. And when we came back, Wall Street was totally different. We had to wear masks every day. We had barriers put up everywhere. You then had metal detectors everywhere. It just like it changed overnight for us. And it was just a different place coming back and forth. And then following that was the first round of layoffs because of that. And from there, I also saw how you can have two people working the same job, but have two different financial lives. So they started saying we have to do rounds of layoffs. And one person that they laid off in a division, he came back the next day because I feel like he didn't know what he was going to do or how to tell his family what happened. Where I had my coworker who had given me financial advice in the past, she was asking to be laid off because she wanted to start her retirement and she had everything planned out, but they wouldn't give her a package. So I said, wow, this is interesting. You got two people working the same jobs, but they're handling this difficulty in a different way. So that was my experience when it came to September 11th.
Wow, that's quite a story. It's one thing to watch it on TV. We all watch it on TV. We watch the playbacks, but it's another thing to be there firsthand and to see all that devastation. Thank you for describing that. And it just must have been so hard. You guys were in your 20s. You were so young.
We were 22, 23. Yeah,
Yeah.
22, 23.
Not even 22. No, we
Yeah.
were like 21, 22. Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you
Wow.
actually in the World Trade Center, or were you in a building adjacent or near to it?
I was about 5 blocks away from it. But when those buildings, I don't know if anyone realizes the scope or how big those buildings were. They were by themselves maybe a block long. Right, Nadia? If you think they were probably a block
Block
long.
wide. Yeah, they were huge.
They were huge. So when that came down, it took over everything. It was like the blob. Nadia described it like the blob. Like you just had rolling ash and fiberglass and things like that
Yeah.
coming at you. And it just stayed for hours.
It turned a bright blue day until it looked like it was pitch black at night. And we're lucky ones, right? And we were 5 blocks away. Like I was right by the stock exchange, which is still relatively far away, but covered in dust. Like it was just crazy. I don't think
So-
people really understand how bad it was.
So were you impacted health-wise or anything like that? Because a lot of people had health issues that were there that day.
No, fortunately not. I think we didn't really follow the advice when they said, oh, the air is fine. We would wear masks on our way in and out of the subway because you can still smell everything burning in the air. And we know some coworkers who have had longer term health problems, but fortunately we did not suffer anything other than
I did have PTSD.
Oh yeah, you did.
In terms of like, I couldn't be in a confined space. I couldn't be in the middle row of a movie theater, of a classroom. I always felt like I couldn't do express stops. And it wasn't until I really thought about it and said, it must be that. If I feel like I'm trapped, like I just start getting anxious.
I think what people
So
don't
that-
understand that Manhattan is an island. You forget that you're on an island when you're there, but when that happened and nothing's running and you're like, I can't go anywhere, you realize you are on an island.
Yeah.
No, it's Nadia and Nicole. It's incredible because I remember where I was. It's one of those days. I was driving home from work early morning from a night shift, and I listened to it on the radio, and I listened to it evolve. So I had no pictures until I got home, and it was a very vivid image in my mind, something I'll never forget. And to hear this story from you guys is incredible. And we sort of just have to honor people like yourselves, all the first responders, and everybody that died that day. So let's take a moment to just remember that day. All right, another day that you guys, or period of time that you guys lived through, and we'll move on to some of the financial topics, is the Great Financial Crisis. And maybe you want to hear about some of your perceptions about what it was like on Wall Street for when Lehman Brothers and our financial system almost came down. Nadia?
Okay, well, interesting at that time. I had left Goldman Sachs and I started working in consulting. And I started consulting on a project at Merrill Lynch. So at that time, everything started going crazy. That's when the investment banks started falling. And Merrill Lynch was one of the ones that was about to fall. And Bank of America stepped in at the last second to merge with Merrill Lynch in order for it wouldn't go under. I was working on a project then, and soon as those conversations started happening, within 48 hours, our project shifted and we had to start understanding what assets went where, what projects you're going to be on, how can we merge these two big banks together. And then from then on, I started working for Bank of America. So I saw the two sides, and you see what the financial crisis is doing because you're seeing these banks collapse in real time. And you're seeing the people working there panicking because nobody knows what's going on. You had Lehman Brothers drop. I think Nicole's husband had just started at Lehman that week. I think he had got his offer, maybe had started like 3 weeks before.
The same day he got to his actual desk is when they declared bankruptcy. So that was fun.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Was that scary?
It
That had
is
to be
scary.
He had a green card. My husband's a foreigner. He had a green card that was attached to his job. So it was like, oh, what's going to happen now?
Oh
Well, it
gosh.
shows that there's incredible resilience in the human race, really. We can adapt to anything. And our late starters in our audience, to come back to that, can adapt to the fact that they got a late start. So we've talked a little about history here, and we've enjoyed the journey down difficult memory lane. You guys are both entrepreneurs. You have your nest eggs from retiring early, but you don't touch them. You manage to avoid touching your nest eggs with different strategies, I think, from each of you. Can you take us through your approach to maybe how passive income helps you avoid touching your nest egg and drawdown so that you can let it grow?
Okay. Well, given the history that we just explained, it became very clear to us that we cannot be tied to a job because that job was going to dictate how we spent our life or how we would have our livelihood. So we said, you know what? We need to create a way that we can be independent from a job. And at the same time, we were thinking about having families. So we had our families later on in life, and we had very demanding careers. Like I was working 70, 80 hours a week. I was traveling all over. And you're like, you know what? These things that happened in the past and losing our mother early made us say, you know what? I value my time freedom more, and I value what I get to choose to do with my life more than what I'm getting paid. So one of the ways we did that, instead of us just jumping ship and saying, oh, I'm leaving these jobs, how can we make our exit more secure? Because Nicole and I are very risk averse people. And one of the ways that we did that was, okay, how can we replace our income? And one of the ways we decided to replace our income was through passive income means. So one of the first ways was through multifamily real estate investing. So we don't have many houses, but we have like 2 to 4 doors. And that was one of the first ways that we were able to start replacing our income and say, you know what, I'm not tied as much to a job. But at the same time, we were investing in the stock market too. And we went more towards safer securities that would pay us an income. So one of the ways we do that is by focusing on investing in dividends. Now, those dividends can come from single stocks, or those dividends can come from index funds too. So that's what we focused on, creating income sources outside of a job to make our exit more secure. And at the same time, provide a way so that we are not able to be dependent on the ups and downs of the market once we left those secure income sources, like getting a steady paycheck.
Well,
Yeah, I would say for anything, we know that the great wealth generators are real estate, stock market, and entrepreneurship,
Yep.
if you do them all correctly. So we said instead of doing one or the other, why not try all of them? So we did a ladder to get to each one, and we're still working on entrepreneurship. So we make passive income from that, but we always kept that in the back of our mind. How can we create passive income sources for these things?
Yeah, so I would agree with you guys. So the main three, if anyone is thinking about building wealth, those are exactly the main three, either through the stock market, entrepreneurship, or real estate. And you're doing all three. And you don't necessarily have to do all three, but you guys found a way to do all three. And we would like to step through those three. So, Bill, what you want to tackle first?
One of you owns a cafe, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe you still don't own it, or maybe the pandemic had some influence there. But tell
I,
us about your experience with the cafe. Was it Nadia or Nicole?
It was Nadia. That was my first experience with entrepreneurship because I had bought a multifamily that had a storefront in the bottom. So I did house hacking. I lived in one apartment, rented out two, worked in my storefront, trying something new, right? So I ran the cafe about 6 years. We had to close it down because of COVID. And I learned a lot of things running a business, running a brick and mortar store, understanding what leadership skills can transfer over into a non-finance business, and understanding how to finance a business on my own without having to take out loans. Because I I don't know if you caught this, but I don't like people having control over me or telling me what to do. So if I cannot get other bosses, I'm not going to replace one with the other. I try to finance myself. So one of the ways I did that with the cafe was, instead of buying new equipment, I would go to auctions and I learned how to bid on equipment that was either brand new or slightly used. So it lowered my costs when I came to buying that equipment and running my store. So my whole thing was, how can I start breaking even as quickly as possible and actually make this a profitable business? And I think a lot of entrepreneurs run into that trouble because they want to get the nice, shiny objects when they start out. And like, that's not necessary. You can start with a secondhand machine and then have the business pay for the nicer one. So that was one of the things I learned. Like, my frugality really helped me out in running a business.
That's a great hack there about the equipment. I never heard that before.
Exactly.
But you were very, very sharp in finding ways to not have to get a loan and to be your own boss. So you
Mhm.
just got very creative.
It forces you to be resourceful. It forces you to understand what you can and cannot put on the menu. There's a lot more things I would like, or how many people you can employ. It forces you to make some decisions, just like budgeting for a business, like budgeting your personal finances. And I think that's where a lot of business people get in trouble, because if you're not good at budgeting your personal finances, you might have difficulty when you're trying to budget the finances of your business. So it helps you make those tough decisions, because now it's like black and white. Can I pay for it or can I not?
Did the two of you invest together? It seems like you're very aligned on your finances and what you're doing. Did you have separate investing lives, or did you merge them in some way?
We always shared information with each other. So I think that's what we kind of like divided and conquer. I went to business school. Nadia focused more on real estate, but whatever information, I still remember one of my first bosses is the one that said, Nicole, let me show you about compound interest. Here, get into your 401k now. You're so young, it would do well for you. I immediately got on the phone and said, Nadia, get into your 401k. It's this thing called compound interest. Let's go. So it wasn't that we converged our finances, but it was like we always bounced ideas off each other, and one took more focus on one area and then the other took focus on another area.
Yeah, that's a twin effect.
Were you involved in real estate then too? Did she?
I do. I have a multifamily. I didn't get as good as a deal as Nadia did, but I think I did help her when it came to running a business, because I had run some before. And I realized, like, look, the biggest issue when you look at the stats, when they say 90% of businesses fail, it's because it's more detailed when you get into it. It's a lot of times it's finances. That's one of the biggest issues. And people, because when it comes to running a business, they'll throw money at you. My very first business, without having any customers, anything, and just having an idea, I went to a bank and they said, here's a $50,000 line of credit. Go do what you want with it. So when you have people throwing money at you because you are running a business, you can definitely get yourself in trouble. So learning how to pull the reins back and say, how would I do this in a financially sensible way, translates to any type of business you want. So I think that's where I said to Nadia, too, when you run a cafe, try to have standard operating procedures, because a lot of times businesses turn into another job. They're
Mhm.
making a job for themselves rather than it being a business. And you have to put these procedures in place so that you can step away anytime you want.
Well, it sounds like just when people throw student loans at you, you're creating your human capital business. You are your own business. Your family is a business. And if you can't manage your family's finances, you can't manage your business at home. How can you even think to take on the risk of managing a business that feeds your family and your own personal business? It's all interrelated. And I completely agree with you, right, Jackie?
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you guys have already shown incredible resilience, bravery to step away from these big jobs on Wall Street, to go out on your own. I mean, just so many things. A lot of people, including myself, would be very scared to do. And it sounds like you almost have your built-in community as twins, because you're always calling each other up. You're always passing on good information, and you're both kind of going in the same direction. So, I mean, already you guys are killing it. You guys are knocking it out of the park.
I think especially if you're choosing FI later, you're catching up to FI. I think one of the things you can do to help yourself is to make it as simple as possible. Don't get caught up in the percentages. Don't get caught up in the numbers. Just say, okay, what is the first step I could do in order to transition to this new way of life, to reaching my goal? And one of the ways I was like, okay, I don't want another boss. How can I fund this myself? Like, simplify it. Don't overcomplicate it, because at the end of the day, these are principles, and principles work for anyone. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter your age or anything. If you follow the simple principles and you're consistent with it, it's going to work. So this, the actions that you're putting in, eventually you're going to get the result that you're looking for. Just make it simple.
I think financial independence or just being good with money is an output. You have to have the inputs in right. So if you focus on doing the right inputs, living below your means, trying to make money in different ways and make more of it as you go on while keeping your expenses low, you're going to wake up one day and you're going to get to a point. But when it comes to catching up, I think one way, I feel when someone's even in their 50s, I believe you still got 40 more years of life if you take care of yourself, you know? So I don't know, when is it ever too late to start? You can always start. And even if you don't hit your goal, you'll be much better off if you have never started. So it's just a matter of make your time frame longer. Don't put so much pressure on yourself to maybe doing it 5 years or so. See how long you can make your timeline and just focus on the inputs.
Completely agree on that. Now, one thing you guys do together is the Wealth Twins, and this is where the merger really took place. Can you give us a little bit of the backstory on the Wealth Twins, how it started, where it started, and where it's gone to?
I think it came from me. I know that. Nadia was running a cafe at the time, and I was about to have my third child. And I said, okay, am I going to go back to work? No, I'm not going to do that. Do I want to be a stay-at-home mom? No, I'm not going to do that either. Okay, so I want something that's going to give me time, flexibility, but also have an impact, because ever since I was young, I thought I would be some type of advocate, and I thought Nadia would like to join me on that journey. So I said, how can I have flexibility, make an income from it if I can, and also have an impact? And I said, Nadia, we're twins. Let's do something together. And she actually agreed to start with me. So I said, okay, we're going to do this. And we didn't know what we were doing. We just
still don't know what we're doing.
Jackie, we don't know what we're doing either.
Yeah, so join the club, ladies.
We're all here not knowing what we're doing, having a good time.
Exactly. Just keep moving forward and seeing how many people we connect. And it was funny because, like you said, you didn't know anything about us. And every day a new person is finding out about us. And the thing that keeps us going is all the little comments we get, the emails that we get from people who are appreciating that we're trying to take these financial concepts and really break them down and giving people another way of looking at this, that you don't have to be into options and doing risky things, but you can do simple principles. And as long as you understand them and you have someone that's willing to explain it to you, you can make some movement in your life.
Yep.
Yeah, and you guys have an amazing video that speaks directly to late starters, and we will link that in the show notes. Thank you for doing that. Hey, Bill, I got my CFP credential a few years ago, but you had been talking about possibly getting yours, and you were so interested in that CFP level knowledge. Are you still interested in that?
Yeah, but I don't want the credentials. How do I do it, a little bit on the lighter version?
Well, I think I got just the thing for you. I got with my friends at the Boston Institute of Finance, and guess what? They have come up with a personal growth track curriculum that is for people that just want to expand their own knowledge. They don't need course credit, but they want that CFP level education. And it's going to be for a lot less than what you would normally pay for going for the CFP.
Well, do they have different programs? My schedule's a little off. Do I have to be live for classes, or how does it work?
I know you're a busy guy at the hospital all the time, but they have two options. They have self-paced courses that you can either take individual, you can just take tax if you want, or they have the instructor-led courses. So probably you'd like the flexible one. But the good thing is that you can learn on the go. Their whole program is mobile friendly, and you could use your iPad, you can use your cell phone, but they make it super easy. So I think it might be just for you.
It sounds like it. I'll check it out.
Yeah, just check out bostonifi.com/personal growth. We'll drop it in the show notes, but it could be something that will help you up your game. And I think your background on Wall Street really helps you do a great job of explaining some of the investing topics, because I know that that is an area that a lot of people shy away, or it's just overly complex and hard to understand. And when you mentioned the stock market, you guys focused a lot on dividend investing, and you did a great blog post and several videos on it. I'd like to step through, you list like 3 easy strategies that you use for a dividend portfolio. And Bill, are you doing dividends? I'm curious.
No, I do not focus on dividends. I keep it
Okay.
very simple, as they just mentioned. But we're going to get a chance to talk with Christy Shen
Yeah.
and Bryce Leung about their dividend yield shield. And these twins created their own version of a yield shield with regards to entrepreneurship and dividend investing. Let's take a step back, though, first, and just describe what a dividend is and why do companies offer one?
Well, okay, a dividend, if we're just talking simply, is just a cash payment most often that a company gives its shareholders for holding the stock. So it's usually a company that is in its more mature phase, not a growth, say, company, and they're giving it as an incentive to keep holding the stock. So they have an idea of what the revenue they're going to generate, and they're bringing some of that profit because they don't know exactly what projects they can bring that's going to give more of a return that would be better off for their shareholders. So instead of just wasting that money, they give back to the shareholders.
Okay, can you throw out a few companies that pay a good dividend or been paying it for a long time, like Procter and Gamble? That would be one with a good dividend. Do you do individuals? Do you guys do it via individual companies, or do you do it like with ETFs or index funds?
I do it both ways. I do it through individual stocks and I do it through index funds. So if you're looking at individual companies, I think we don't really promote individual.
Coca-Cola is one.
Yeah, Coca-Cola, but
Yeah.
Pepsi is one. Like these are all the well-known, like Procter and Gamble. These are the well-known companies. But if you don't want to do like individual stocks, you can look at like Noble. Those are the ones that have been paying a dividend and increasing the dividend for like over 25 years or something.
And what's Noble?
Noble is an ETF, and it holds what's called dividend aristocrats. So the S&P has these companies that have been producing a dividend and growing that dividend every year for at least 25 years. And all these companies are called dividend aristocrats. So the S&P actually labels all the dividend aristocrats there are. And Noble is an ETF that you can buy that only has those dividend aristocrats in it.
Okay, so Noble is the ticker symbol,
Yeah.
NOBL?
NOBL.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. So that's an easier way, gives you a little more diversification where you're not playing with it. And I'm the nerd that loves to evaluate individual companies, but the vast majority of people probably shouldn't. But thank you for explaining that. And I think the whole idea of doing it via an index fund might be even more attractive to people and take less time and make it easy to put together a dividend portfolio.
Yeah, the reason why we promote dividends is like, what's the point of holding a stock if you can also hold the stock, make money on the stock going up if you choose to sell it, but at the same time, you're getting paid a dividend while holding it. Like you can get the best of two worlds if you can find a stock doing that. But at the same time, if you're holding it, why not get paid for holding it at the same time? It's the only way to make passive income in the stock market in our way.
Well, you talk about too, what makes a dividend investing a powerful investment strategy, because we need to know what percent of the appreciation of, say, an S&P 500 index fund is dividends, so that you can understand why is it a powerful strategy. Can you tell us about that?
Oh boy, let's see facts and figures. Overall, I would say the majority, when someone says the stock market has gone up for the last 100 years, the majority of that return is actually based on the dividends that are reinvested into the companies. So the overall average of the stock market going up is one thing, but there's much more. You can get a much more return on your portfolio on when the reinvested dividend is put into that stock. So I wish I had my graph on me, but I would say I don't even want to show out the numbers, but it's a huge difference. It's a huge difference of you just holding that stock and letting it go and getting the difference, or reinvesting that stock, the amount of money that you get over a long period of time just for holding it.
Reinvesting the dividends.
Yeah, just reinvesting in dividends in these stocks that are going up over time. It's a multiple in terms of return on your money.
So when it comes to the dividends, you have an option to either reinvest the dividends into that same company index fund or whatever, or you can use it for cash flow. And if you're using it for cash flow, the way you guys are using it is that it's inside of a brokerage account and not a retirement account.
Yeah, it's in brokerage. So we're not actually using it. We still it's in there. We could decide whether we reinvest it or not. So we have some sitting in cash, but you can either get the payment as an actual check from the company, but it's all in our brokerage account. So we have dividend funds in our retirement accounts, but we do have a lot of dividend funds in our brokerage account so that we're not tied to being in that retirement age when we access them.
Gotcha.
All right. So we're not proponents necessarily in our audience of a dividend stock investment. We just want to educate you on what it is. And we're not trying to sell Noble either.
No, not at all.
If you want to,
That's just an
I don't want
example.
Noble to be the only one that you look at, because that is a managed ETF. If you want, like, say, a dividend, so there's types of main strategies that we talk about. There's a broad-based index fund strategy, which is buying index funds that happen to have stocks that have dividends. So like a SWPPX, which is the S&P 500 that you can get index from Schwab. When you have also dividend growth focus index funds, which are not managed funds. I don't know how deep you want to get. So these are funds that have lower fees. We have, actually, no, this is an ETF. It's called SCHD, which focuses on companies that are growing, that are providing a small dividend, but in the hopes that these companies will still appreciate in price and grow their dividend at the same time. Then you have a high dividend yield strategy, which is finding companies such as commodities like oil companies or so that provide a high dividend because their stock price is not going up. So the way to incentivize a person to buy is to have that high dividend. But that could be a tricky strategy because sometimes a high dividend, because it's linked, I'm not going to get into math, but dividend yield is based versus earnings per share. Okay. So as the price fluctuates, so is the dividend yield. But there's a reason why the price may fluctuate. So you have those that the price doesn't fluctuate and it has a high dividend yield because it's a commodity. That's one way. But if a company is getting adversely affected from some news, either by its own or some other companies, that can also make the dividend yield go high, but that dividend may not be sustainable. So these are three different ways, and you can make money on each way of these, but you have to figure out which one is the one that works for you. If you have more time in the market, you might look at dividend growth. If you want more stability, you might look at broad base. If you want more income, you might look at high dividend yield, but depending on which stock you're looking at. And they all can be done with single stocks and also can be done with funds.
You have a great video on this where you do make some recommendations that we'll link in the show notes. I think there's about 5 recommendations in your video. But this is not a free lunch. This kind of stuff comes with risk. It sounds great. I just want the company to pay me money. What are the risks involved in dividend investing so people have a more realistic, balanced look at this thing?
I guess one of the risks is that the risk of them cutting the dividend. A company could get in trouble and then eventually cut their dividend. That happened during COVID, where you had Royal Caribbean cut the dividend for their stock. Now, depending on what the situation, why the company cut their dividend, it can adversely impact the stock price too. But if there's an understanding why they're cutting it, that's the real risk that you're running into when it comes to dividend investing.
Yeah, and when you mention the broad-based index funds, for a lot of the FI community, they talk a lot about VTSAX. That fund pays a dividend. VTI, that pays a dividend. VUG is another Vanguard growth fund that pays a dividend. So a lot of these funds that we're already used to, a lot of the FI people, those do pay dividends. And you just have to determine, hey, do you want to reinvest them or do you want it for cash flow? And a lot of people that are retired, they may just want it that way. And that way, that dividend, if it's a good, stable one for an index fund or whatever, if that dividend sort of stays stable or it grows, that's not going to fluctuate with the price of the stock.
Exactly.
or the price of the fund. So yeah, so the dividends is very interesting. Thank you for kind of stepping us through that, because I know, is it you, Nicole, that has your MBA from NYU?
That's why you see Nadia being quiet over
Yeah,
here.
yeah. So this girl is giving us NYU level lesson on dividend investing. So that was very, very helpful, because we do hear about it a lot, and some people like it, some people don't. But I think it's important, like you guys are saying, you're not only diversifying your stock investments, but you're diversifying your whole wealth building process by dipping in the stock market, the entrepreneurship, and then the house hacking and the real estate. So you're doing it all, and you seem to be really, really good at all of those. So thank you for stepping us through the dividend part
Thank
of it.
you. I was gonna say what Bill was saying. Any the dangers of dividends. I just think if you just look at it and buy things because of the dividend, that's where you can get in trouble. Okay, but other than that, a dividend company should be a more stable company than one that doesn't have a dividend at all. So don't just look at the dividend, look at a bigger picture and the time horizon, because dividends are very small amounts of money that you're going to get. So you're either going to get it by being in the market a long time, or if you have a shorter time frame, you got to put more money in to get the dividend you want, to get a bigger dividend payout. But other than that, I can't tell you that there's too many cons, in my opinion. I would love someone else to tell me.
We're going to link both the article you wrote on this as well as the video you did on this and the recommendations you make in our show notes. We can't cover everything here in a very short 10, 15-minute stretch. It's obviously a very complicated topic, but your platform, The Wealth Twins, is a great place to jump off and dig into it more. So we'd encourage our audience to do so. As we come towards the close of our show, we wanted to take us back to one of the articles you wrote on learning the most common mistakes when it comes to investing in the stock market that will save you time and money. These are recommendations for beginners, and a lot of our audience would consider themselves beginners, and you ranked them in reverse order. If you don't recall them, I can list them off and you can comment on them if you like.
Yeah, please do.
Yes,
I think that
please
was
do.
like one of the first articles we ever wrote.
Well, it was very good. And you guys do such an awesome job of explaining things, and you tackle so many different things on your YouTube channel. So definitely everyone should check them out if you really want things broken down in plain language from someone that does have the background that can really step you through some of these more complex topics.
All right, so this is like David Letterman, the reverse top 10 where we get to but unfortunately, it's not as funny as his top 10 must be. This is Nadia and Nicole's top 7. Number 7, not paying attention to fees.
Yes.
Fees are
Nicole,
compounding
you're
against you. Okay, fees compound against you. So, as with anything, if the more time you stay in the market, the more fees are going to be taken out of your portfolio. So, the lower you can have those fees, the better for you. Because a fee can turn what would be a 7-figure portfolio into a 6-figure portfolio. And it doesn't matter how small that number is, just a 1% fee can end up being a huge difference.
Okay, I agree. And people think that 1% assets under management is not a big deal. And when you're at the beginning of your investing career, you're going to send your advisor's kids to college on your portfolio. It's 6-figure sums. Absolutely. So,
and it's taking out whether the market goes up or down.
And you don't see it.
Right.
And you don't see it.
You had to cut the check every year to an advisor that's managing your assets in a minute, you would have a heart attack probably.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It would be one of the biggest bills you pay all year. And it's silent. It's a silent killer. I completely agree. Jackie, what's number 6?
Yeah, let's hit number 6, investing in scams.
Okay, I think this is probably very relevant for your audience too, right? Because when you're starting late, you might say, oh, I need to get up to speed very quickly. So you're more susceptible to someone trying to be nefarious when it comes to taking your money for you. You might fall for a scam a lot easier. So they say, oh, we can make you this money. We guarantee your return. Anytime someone guarantees your return, run the other way. So this is for, especially if you're a beginner, you don't know what's going on. A lot of people will talk circles around you and try to get you to believe that all you need to do is invest with them and you're going to make a lot of money. Avoid the scam, because that's one of the quickest ways to lose the money that you intend to invest and have a nest egg. You will lose it quickly just falling for something that seems too good to be true.
Okay, completely agree again. Great advice. We're going to move on to number 5. Buying individual stocks and not funds. We just talked about buying individual
Yeah.
stocks, and now we're talking about buying funds instead. Why is that potentially a beginner's mistake?
Okay, so for your audience, I would say it's not always a beginner's mistake in terms of if you have the time in the market to recover for it, right? But funds give you instant diversification, which you need to help you sustain whatever income you have in that portfolio. When you're doing individual stocks, you're playing with trying to pick winners and losers, which is a very hard game. You have a much better chance of mixing and matching the winners and losing and still coming out a winner if you go with index funds. Now, I know Jackie probably disagrees with me because she did fantastic with individual stocks, but for the beginner, I've been burned too many times. And I think for beginners, funds are always, I shouldn't say always, is an easier way to go without having to pick winners versus losers.
Oh, no, I totally agree with you on that. I am a nerd and I love spending a couple hours a week looking at individual companies. The vast majority of people do not. So I always try to make that disclaimer. And Nicole, I think I heard you explain diversification and allocation, like using an analogy with the clothes in your closet. Can you do that analogy? Because diversification and allocation just seems like such big words, but I just love the way that you broke this down. So can you do that for us?
So I break it down like asset allocation. That's probably one of the most important things you can do by building your portfolio. And the way I do it is break it down in clothes. You have shirts, you have pants, and you have shoes. Now, how many shirts, how many pants, and how many shoes, that's going to be your asset allocation. And 50% shirts, 30% pants, and 20% shoes, you get to decide what you do in terms of a combination of those things. Now, when it comes to diversification, are you going to only have long sleeve shirts, maybe heavy wool pants, and only sneakers? Well, no. Within the shirts, you might want to have some short sleeve shirts, some tank tops, some dress shirts, and some workout shirts. Same thing when it comes to your pants. And that's what we have to do because you should be able to be ready for any type of occasion and any type of weather. And if you want to get even more sophisticated, you do not want all of those clothes coming from one company because if something happens to the provider, the maker of those clothes, you're going to be out of luck if you have any holes in those clothes and you want to replace it. So that's how I try to explain asset allocation or diversification for people.
So you're saying don't buy Enron. Don't put your whole life savings.
Don't buy Blockbuster. We don't want
But what the thing you left out there is underwear and socks. Where do underwear and socks?
We don't need those.
those are your basics. Those are your bonds.
So you're
That's
going
the cash.
commando. You're going commando.
That's the cash.
All right. I think we've reached number 4.
Yeah, number 4.
And this is one of my problems. And you talk about, and there is some psychological problem here. You become obsessed with checking your portfolio.
Yeah. One of the things we get from a lot of our audience members is that, oh, I bought it at this price. I keep having to look every day. And all that does is just give you anxiety about the market. And then it's going to make you either more hesitant to invest or it's going to make you put more money into it and you're not even thinking about it, right? The best thing you can do is ignore what's going on. We're investing for the long term. We're not looking at short-term fluctuations, right? Because you're just going to drive yourself crazy. So don't come excess. We're looking at your portfolio, checking it all the time. Just pick a strategy, try to stick with it for the long term because you're in it for the long term. And that the quickest way for you to break your strategy and actually lose money is to keep checking it all the time.
Bill, are you checking your portfolio all the time? Tell the truth.
Mine's really simple. It's not hard to check. And on a good market day, I'll check. It's nice to see, oh, the net worth did this. And it's done this in the last 90 days or the last year. Forward progress is motivating. I mean, it gamifies it for me a little bit. And you want to win the game. So, and you can't improve on what you don't measure. So
how do you feel when it drops?
It's okay. I realize that's a normal fluctuation. I listened to J.L. Collins's meditation video. Where if you haven't heard this video or listened to it, his voice is very calming and soothing, and he helps you get through any market downturn.
Okay. Yeah. Have you guys read The Simple Path to Wealth?
We have.
Yeah,
Yes,
calm.
we have.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and he did this video that's just calming when the market's crazy or whatever. And I use that meditation video as well. And I probably check
Look
mine
at
more
that.
when it's doing great because it's just a lot more
I
fun.
just don't look.
Yeah, just a look. Great tip though.
Now you should look every once in a while.
Yeah, my sister set up her retirement portfolio. She's an aggressive saver. She basically didn't look at it for 20 years. And when she opened it, she was shocked. I mean, she should have paid attention to her asset allocation. She picked sort of a standard one that her university was offering, but she was shocked that, oh my God, look what I've done. And now she's playing with it. I'm like, be careful. Don't mess with success. You can simplify it, but don't mess with success.
Yeah, you don't have to check it often, but you check it on a regular basis. I say every 3 to 6 months, but don't check it day by day by day.
Yeah,
You'll
I think
set
about the
yourself up.
security aspect of it too. Make sure nothing crazy is going on with the account. Keeping an
Yeah.
eye on it that way. But yeah, that's a great tip. Bill, we're up to number 3. And number 3 is buying at the market price.
Oh, this is Nadia's favorite line over here. I'll let her say this one.
Well, basically, if you buy at the market
No,
price, you
no, say
don't
what
know.
you say. Say what you say.
Well,
Market orders.
market orders is for suckers. No, basically, it's like if you are buying at the market price, they just have the right to charge you whatever they want. And they're not executing your trade like as quickly, like it's whoever gets it, right? But if you set a limit order, that's how I buy all my trades. I set it on limit, I set the price, and I think it's just a better way of buying. If you set it in market order, you're just leaving it in someone else's hands. But I pay exactly what I want for everything I buy. So I think picking a limit order is just as easy as picking a market order. You have a little bit more control.
No, I agree with you on the limit order because the market can have a significant drop or a
hmm
significant rise, and you can get pushed into buying at a peak. And
And a couple of companies have been getting in trouble when they're sending their market order to them, even though they're not the lowest price. So it's just easier for you to maintain that.
why would you go into Target and say, I'll have your top end clothes, whatever the price, I'll just buy it?
Exactly.
Okay, so number 2, not maxing out your job retirement account. This is probably the number one thing. Somebody should pull aside a 20, 21-year-old with their first job and say, max out your 401k. We had Fritz Gilbert on Retirement Manifesto. This is the thing his boss said to him when he just started out, and he retired at 50. That's probably the only thing that you have to say to somebody in a way. Yes, asset allocation, location, all the individual issues are important, but if you just get started, max it out, you're going to get where you want to go in 15, 20 years without a problem.
That's exactly what I would say on top of that. If it's your 401k and your job matches it, it's free money. Take it.
Yeah, and before we get to tip number 1, you gave us a little bonus tip. It was focus only on price.
Don't focus only on price.
Yeah,
Right?
well, that's one of the mistakes. The mistake is that you focus only on price.
Oh, okay. Because, well, whatever you make in the market, it's only on paper until you sell it, right? So at the end of the day, don't focus on price. There's other things that you should be looking at when it comes to buying a company, and price is just one of the aspects, right? So that's the main reason.
It's more important, I believe, to look at earnings for cash flow purposes, and also if look at dividends. Maybe that could be a little help to you as well. But focusing only on price is only part of the story.
Yeah, and I didn't know that for a long time.
Yeah, well, capital appreciation is only one aspect of a cash flowing investment, and you have to look at the whole holistic picture. All right, Jackie, drum roll, please. Number 1, not believing you can do this without a professional. This is the advisor question. Why don't you
Yeah.
both take this one?
I was in the management of money. I was in asset management, and I saw what the guys were doing. And it's like one guy came up there and says, "Not rocket science, right? But it is. It takes time. But for someone to, unless you really want to, you don't need a professional unless your situation is very complicated. I'm not saying there's no reason not to have a professional. If you have a complicated situation and you want that extra hand holding, then yes, for taxes and things like that as well. But if you just want to start investing and you want to make it so that you're growing your nest egg over a longer period of time, it's not necessary if you're able to educate yourself. There's so many resources out now that a financial advisor should be more of a compliment rather than a default.
My thing is that I think no one should care more about your money than you do. So you should really understand what's going on with your money. You shouldn't do anything too complicated that you don't understand. And if you choose to use a financial advisor, it should be more out of convenience than necessity. And if you're going to do that, you should still educate yourself so you know what to ask in your conversations with the financial advisor. Because we already said before, fees can take a huge chunk out of your savings. So if you can avoid that and just manage it yourself and then ask questions here and there, and if you want to use an advisor, make sure it's a fee-based advisor. That's what you should do. But don't think I just need someone to hand it off to the professionals because I don't know what I'm doing. I think all of us are capable of managing our own money. We just have to break down some of the mystique that comes around that, and then more people would be comfortable managing their money on their own.
I mean, just like I said before, if you have $1 million portfolio and you're at 1% AUM or assets under management, you're cutting a $10,000 check every year. And do you want that $10,000 to grow in your pocket or somebody else's pocket? And the opportunity cost there is huge. So you get what you pay for sometimes, but not always. And why wouldn't you rather pay yourself, I guess, first? Exactly. All right, guys. This has been an awesome time. I've really enjoyed getting to meet you, hearing your stories, getting a little bit of a history lesson from the ground level up, really, literally. Jackie, any final thoughts or comments on our talk here with the Wealth Twins?
Yeah, I knew we'd have a great time talking with them. I've known them for quite a few years, and I love their perspective on wealth building. They started in a very modest situation, just like I did. So I love to see not just growth as in wealth building, but growth as a person, to start out so modestly and to move so far and get to the point where you want to teach others. You guys are doing an amazing job with educating others, breaking things down, and you're using your background and your education to help so many people. So thank you guys for joining us on the show today.
Thank you very much for having us.
All right. Our late starters want to know if you have any final words or final tips for them, because we are here for them.
I would say the best time to invest was 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. Don't worry about anything in the past that you can't control. You can start from today and take control today. So don't call yourself out.
I was about to say the same thing. Don't wait. Waiting doesn't do anything for you. The amount of time that you still have, even if you're starting late, is still a significant amount of time. Just start off slow if you have to, but the most important thing is to start.
Yeah, Nadia and Nicole, where can people find you?
They can find us on YouTube at Wealth Twins, and they can find us on Instagram, but we put out a video every week on Wealth Twins, so you'll get our most up-to-date stuff. And we also have courses or anything like that people, if they're comfortable, they want to learn more, they can also look into those too.
Okay, awesome.
All right, Jackie. Twin power unite. 1 + 1 is more than 2. And clearly these guys exemplify the power of compounding on a very human level. Nicole and Nadia, I want to say thanks from the bottom of my heart for joining us today. We look forward to talking to you again about all the topics that you have wisdom on. Jackie?
Yeah, thank you guys so much. We appreciate it, and you're welcome to come back anytime.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. That's it for Catching Up to 5. We'll see you guys next week.
So, Bill, as you know, we cannot do this show without our amazing staff and the people that help us put this on. So our social media is Diana Falk, our editor is Fritz Bassard, and show notes are done by Sarah von Sternberg. We love them and they keep us going.
Yeah, I mean, this show wouldn't have the quality it has without our folks, our peeps. And we'd also like to give you a few calls to action for the show. We love our community and we hope you love us back. If you want to support the show and what we're doing, you can do that at Buy Me a Coffee, which is a platform that allows you to virtually say thank you if you get value from our content. The link is in the show notes, or you can head over to our website at catchinguptofy.com and click on the Support the Podcast tab at the top right. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Catching Up to 5. We would appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star review so that our message can reach others.
While we are financial educators and I'm a financial professional that loves to teach, our content is for general education and information purposes only. We are not providing financial, legal, or tax advice. Always do your own research or consult a professional before making important decisions.
We'll see you next time on Catching Up to 5.